Verse 86. Until when he reached the setting place of the sun, he found its setting in a dark, muddy spring, and he found near it a people. We said, O Dhul-Qarnayn, either punish them or adopt towards them a course of goodness. Now, the first stage of the journey begins, but it is essential to pay close attention. The Quran is not describing a geographical sightseeing expedition. Rather, it is constructing a profoundly symbolic, psychological, and existential scene. For this reason, the verse is filled with deep layers of meaning. First, until when he reached. The word balaga, reached, does not merely mean arrival. Rather, it implies arrival after a process of movement, extension, effort, and testing. For this reason, the concept of reaching in the Quran often carries the meaning of maturity or attaining a final threshold. Examples include reaching full strength, reaching marriageable age, reaching the appointed term. Therefore, he did not merely pass by the West. Rather, he arrived at a particular existential boundary. Second, the setting place of the sun. Here, one of the most profound symbolic layers begins. What does Maghrib mean linguistically? It comes from the root gar eba, rinu raun baron, carrying meanings such as absence, distance, hiddenness, withdrawal, decline or setting. From the same root come words such as sunset, stranger. Thus, the West is not merely a geographical direction. Rather, it represents the realm of decline, disappearance, and withdrawal from visibility. And what does the sun represent here? Within Quranic symbolism, the sun is frequently associated with manifestation, a light, awareness, visible perception. Its natural counterpart is therefore the night. Thus, he reached the setting place of the sun. Linguistically and psychologically, this may signify reaching the region where apparent light disappears. In other words, arriving at the boundaries of psychological, intellectual, or civilizational decline. On the psychological level, and according to Jung's framework, this moment represents an encounter with the shadow. Jung held that a genuinely developing person inevitably reaches an inner dark region containing repressed elements, fears, chaos, instinctual drives, painful contents. This is the psychological setting place of the sun, a stage in which easy and obvious light disappears. Put simply, Dhul-Qarnayn did not begin with light. He began by descending toward the realm of sunset. This is profoundly significant. The first journey of a mature soul is not toward glory, but toward confronting darkness. Third, he found its setting. Here, careful attention is required. The Quran says, he found its setting. It does not say, it was setting. What does wajada, found, mean in the Quran? It does not always indicate an absolute objective reality. Rather, it can describe reality as perceived through human experience and observation. Therefore, he found its setting, meaning, this is how it appeared from his perspective. The Quran is describing the perceptual scene, not presenting an astronomical lesson. Fourth, in a muddy spring. This is one of the most historically oversimplified expressions. What does ain mean? In the Quran, it is not limited to the physical eye. It may signify a spring of water, a point of observation, a center of perception, a source or origin. In other words, a place from which something living and flowing emerges. And what does amiyah mean? It derives from the root m, her'un mimun hemzatin, and is associated with darkness, black mud, heat, transformation, mixed and unsettled matter. Thus, the image is not simply that the sun falls into a pond. Rather, it portrays light disappearing into a dense, dark, and turbulent medium. Psychologically, this is a striking image of the deep unconscious. It is the moment when consciousness enters regions of ambiguity, pain, instinct, inner chaos, in Jungian thought. This corresponds to a descent into the lower unconscious, a domain where things intermingle and lose their former clarity and purity. Hence the image of the muddy spring, a spring that is alive and flowing, yet dark, dense, and obscure. Fifth, and he found nearer to people. Here we encounter a very subtle point. Even within the realm of darkness, there are people. In other words, these regions are not empty. They are psychologically inhabited. What does this mean? Within every human being there exist desires, fears, memories, instincts, various psychological patterns. All of them dwell within this symbolic setting place of the sun. For this reason, Dhul-Qarnayn's first challenge there was not warfare. Rather, it was determining how to deal with these inhabitants. First, we said, this deserves careful attention. The verse does not say, he chose, he saw, he acted. Instead, it says, we said. This indicates the presence of a higher guidance within the scene. What does this mean structurally? It means that empowerment does not imply complete independence from divine measure. Rather, the greater the capability, the greater the ethical responsibility. Psychologically, every person who acquires power, knowledge, influence, the ability to affect others, eventually reaches a moment when an inner question arises. How will you use this power? In psychological terms, this is the meaning of we said, the inner normative voice. Second, why was he addressed as O Dhul-Qarnayn? The address is directed toward his integrated and balanced identity, as though the meaning were, oh, you who carry both poles, how will you act now? This is psychologically profound. The true test of a balanced personality is not possessing power. It is managing opposing forces when exercising that power. Sixth, either punish them or adopt toward them a course of goodness. This is the moment of ethical decision. Notice, after attaining power, capability, and means, the first test appears. How will authority be used? Why does the verse begin with punishment? Because the first human reaction toward darkness is often repression. When a person discovers within himself fear, desire, anger, disorder, his instinct is often to suppress or crush these elements. Third, either punish. Notice that the Quran begins with punishment. This is not accidental. Why? Because the first impulse that often accompanies authority is domination through force. When human beings feel powerful, they are frequently tempted by control. Linguistic analysis of tu'adiba, to punish. The root is dhb, ainu velum beron. Interestingly, this root is also related to the concept of sweetness and purity. Classical Arabic distinguishes between ad, pleasant, pure, sweet. Ad, punishment. Ad refers to something pure, penetrating, and effective. Ad refers to a penetrating and enduring pain. Thus, both share the underlying notion of deep impact and penetration. Therefore, punishment is not merely a penalty. Rather, it is the act of subjecting someone to a deep and persistent form of pain. Here the wisdom of the verse becomes apparent. God did not say, do not punish. Instead, he presented a choice. Why? Because true maturity is not the absence of the capacity for harshness. Rather, it is possessing that capacity while remaining able to govern it. But the alternative is to adopt among them a course of goodness. The verse does not say, to be kind to them. What does tadakita, adopt, mean here? It suggests establishing a deliberate mode of relationship founded upon goodness. The goodness referred to here is not indulgence. Rather, it is balanced governance. In the Quran, itikad, adoption, is not a temporary action. It signifies a conscious and continuing commitment. Examples include, God took Abraham as a close friend. They took their scholars and monks as authorities. Do not take my enemy and your enemy as allies. Thus, adoption implies a deliberate choice that becomes an established approach. What is meant by us and goodness here? In the Quranic sense, goodness is deeper than mere kindness. It refers to what is aligned with balance, natural order, and sound measure. This is why the Quran speaks of good speech, a goodly loan, good intercession, good reward, good companionship. In each case, Goodness is not mere softness. Rather, it refers to what establishes proper balance. Therefore, goodness here is not weakness. It is the wise administration of power. Psychologically, in Jung's framework, this is a profound point. A person does not heal through repression alone. Healing comes through understanding oneself, organizing one's impulses, directing one's instincts. For this reason, the mature personality neither denies the darkness nor surrenders to it. Instead, it engages with it wisely, meaning, do not deny the darker forces. Do not release them without restraint. Rather, establish a conscious and balanced relationship with them. Why does the verse say, among them, rather than, for them? This is a subtle point. The expression among them suggests that goodness is not merely external. Rather, it enters into the very structure itself, as though the objective is to transform the interior, not merely to beautify the surface. The verse presents the first test of the empowered human being. Choice psychological meaning, punish repression and domination, adopt goodness among them conscious and balanced organization. Thus, the journey does not begin with conquering a city. It begins with confronting darkness. Here the Quran reveals what happens when a human being reaches a position of authority over the other, whether that other is an external person or an internal aspect of the self. More importantly, God did not impose the decision directly. Rather, he revealed the space of choice. This reveals that true empowerment is not tested by power itself. Rather, it is tested by how that power is used. All the preceding stories prepare for this moment. Story central test. The companions of the cave preserving faith. The owner of the two gardens, the temptation of possession. Moses and Al-Qaeda, the limits of understanding. Dhul-Qarnayn, the responsibility of power. For this reason, Dhul-Qarnayn represents the most difficult stage. The final question is not, do you possess power? Rather, how will you remain balanced and humane once you become powerful?